Maximilian Voss, 32, twice winner of the candidates tournament, and a reigning grandmaster with a face every chess columnist had splashed across glossy pages, stepped off a Rattling County bus in Maple Falls, Oregon, on a drizzly Wednesday morning. The stop consisted of a leaning signpost, a cracked bench, and nothing else. Precisely the kind of place where nobody expected to find a celebrity. After the spectacular meltdown in Reykjavik, 3 blunders in 4 moves, a wildfire of headlines, an avalanche of pundit ridicule, Max had sworn to disappear for a while. Maple Falls promised anonymity like a forest promises shade. He rented an attic room over the town's hardware store, shaved the perpetual stubble that magazines praised as brooding, and introduced himself simply as Mac. He stuffed his titles, trophies, and the guilt of disappointing coaches and sponsors into the same dusty suitcase. All he kept was the travel set that had traveled with him since childhood. Wooden pieces worn to silk by nervous thumbs. 2 blocks from the hardware store sat the Bean Paradox, a converted Victorian house painted cheerful turquoise, its porch strung with warm lights even at noon. Inside, mismatched tables held renegade plants. Burlap sacks of beans served as extra stools. What drew Mac wasn't only the smell of espresso, but the single, battered chessboard permanently stationed near the window. Its white queen missing a crown tip. A hand-lettered sign taped to the wall read, "Play for fun, trash talk allowed, losers buy the next round." The barista on duty that first afternoon looked nothing like the grim, monastic opponents Max remembered from elite tournaments. She wore a red bandana, silver hoop earrings, and a shirt that declared, "Espresso yourself." When she laughed, her shoulders joined in, wholeheartedly. A thin jade bracelet jangled as she tamped grounds. Her name tag announced, Nora. Nora noticed the stranger staring at the board with a proprietary longing. "You play?" she asked, sliding a cortado under his nose before he ordered. "A bit," Max said, aware that understatement was an old habit of his. "Mind if I set it up? Be my guest." Nobody touches it in the morning except old Mr. Caro, and he cheats. He smiled, placing the pieces, feeling a hush settle inside him. The cheap plastic queens were featherlight compared to the Stauntons he was used to, but their familiarity calmed him. He didn't intend to reveal himself. He merely wanted the place to breathe in. For 2 weeks, he became a fixture at the same table, reading detective novels, nursing cappuccinos, and replaying grandmaster games in his head. Customers drifted by, offered casual chat, moved a pawn or two before leaving. Nora often wiped the counter in strategic arcs that kept him within conversation range. She'd ask small questions. "Why Maple Falls? What are you scribbling in that notebook?" And Mac would deflect with wry humor. She called him Mysterious Mac. He pretended to mind, but secretly, he liked that she sensed there was more. One rainy Thursday evening, the cafe emptied early, thunder chasing patrons home. Nora locked the door, flipped the sign to closed, and approached him holding 2 steaming mugs. "I was going to practice latte art alone," she said, "but I'd rather lose a game first." "You assume you'll lose," he teased. "I learned from my grandmother in Puerto Rico. She said rules are suggestions. That usually confuses people used to straight roads." She sat, brushed curls from her eyes. "Wager. Loser tries my latest drink experiment. No complaints allowed." Mac accepted. Internally, he braced for boredom. Cafe challengers rarely survived past middle game. Yet he reminded himself to remain invisible. No flashy sacrifices. Keep the position muddy. Maybe even let her win narrowly. He opened with 1e4. Nora stared at the board theatrically, then pushed her G-pawn 2 squares. Mac blinked. A coffeehouse gambit indeed. She developed knights to unconventional squares, flung pawns like confetti, and hummed folk tunes while thinking. At move 12, he began sweating. Her attack wasn't theoretically sound, but every time he tried to punish it, she conjured some tactical ghost that forced him back. Pieces flew off the board. She sacrificed a rook, stomped a foot when he declined, and finally wheedled him into taking it only to spring a vicious fork with her bishop. Mac, the man who had once calculated 30 moves deep under stadium lights, found himself fighting for breath against a barista wearing foam-splattered jeans. On move 29, he recognized the chill of inevitability. His king cornered, options none. He tipped his king. Nora exhaled as if she'd been holding the cafe's entire oxygen supply. "Well," she said, eyes sparkling, "that was satisfyingly weird." Mac laughed louder than he had in months. "What on earth was that opening?" "One I made up at 14. I call it the mango salsa attack. Mix sweet, mix spice, burn the tongue." "Apt name." He extended his hand. "Good game, Nora." She shook, palms warm. "Now, drink." The experimental beverage was an espresso shot, layered with hibiscus syrup, lime zest, and chili flakes. It tasted like Miami heat crashing into Italian autumn, and miraculously, it wasn't terrible. They sat past closing, talking origins, her childhood in coastal Carolina and summers in San Juan. His vague, moving around a lot. Lightning stitched the sky. Inside, the pendant lights glowed honey over the pieces still scattered in post-combat disarray. Over the next month, they played nearly every evening. Nora's style remained anarchic, creative, a joyful rebellion against theory. Mac adjusted, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, always fascinated. Between games, he fixed a wobbly table, helped roast beans, and repaired the cafe's temperamental record player. Rumors sprouted among regulars that Mac and Nora were a couple. They weren't, yet, but each rumor felt like a nudge toward an edge neither feared to cross. One Sunday morning, Maple Falls hosted its annual Founders' Day fair. Main Street brimmed with kettle corn, quilts, and a rickety stage for local talent. The Bean Paradox set up a booth offering cold brew and beat the barista, win a muffin. Nora wore a cardboard crown. Mac stood beside, pretending mere assistant. Players queued, retired teachers, teenagers, a sheriff's deputy. Nora dispatched them all with swashbuckling flair, talking trash and doling sugar-glazed consolation. Then came Gerald Higgins, president of the Regional Chess Club and self-proclaimed strategist. He set his own polished set on the table, sneering at the plastic cafe kit. "Let's make it interesting," Gerald said. "If I win, you give my club free coffee vouchers. If you win, we'll advertise your place in our newsletter." Nora grinned. "Deal." She opened with B4, the Sokolsky, which Gerald countered confidently. A crowd gathered. Mac watched Nora's elbow quiver. Nerves. Gerald's pressure mounted. Nora's pieces jammed awkwardly. Mac's fingers itched to intervene. Nora caught his gaze briefly, something fragile flickering. Gerald missed a tactic that Mac spotted instantly, but Nora didn't. Her time ticked. At 5 seconds, she lunged for a queen trade that left her endgame bleeding. She lost! Gerald crowed, shook his fist like a victorious gladiator. Later, back at the cafe, Nora slammed her fist on the counter. "I can't stand smug bullies." "You played brilliantly most of the game," Mac offered. "Not enough." She chewed a thumbnail. "You saw the winning line, didn't you?" He admitted with a shrug. "Who are you really, Mac?" The question settled like dust in a beam of winter sun. He opened his mouth, closed it. Fear felt absurd next to her impatient honesty. He locked the front door, drew the blinds, then fetched his travel set and, from his suitcase, an old program from Reykjavik with his face on the cover. He laid both before her. "I'm Maximilian Voss." Second stretched. A car hissed by outside. Nora picked up the program, studied the photograph, his formal suit, intense stare, and looked back at the man in front of her, wearing a faded flannel. "You're that guy, the meltdown guy." "Yes," he said, voice small. She walked to the espresso machine, turned it on violently. "So, you've been hustling me?" "No. I needed to be nobody for a while. When you beat me that night, it reminded me why I fell in love with the game. You were playing for joy, not ratings. It saved me." Steam screamed from the wand. Nora inhaled, then released. "I feel like an idiot." "You're not. I should have told you." Silence, heavy as rain-soaked wool. Finally, she shoved a cappuccino toward him. "It's on the house, champ. We'll talk later." That night, Mac hardly slept. He composed apologies in his head, each rejected for sounding like press conference platitudes. Morning delivered drizzle and dread. He considered packing, leaving before she could decide she hated him. But flight had cost him too much already. At noon, he entered the cafe. Nora wasn't behind the bar. A teenager was. His heart thumped. Then he spotted her on the porch, sitting cross-legged with a notebook. He stepped outside. "Can I join?" She shrugged. He sat on the wooden floorboards. "I didn't close the place yesterday," she said. "Been thinking. The guy on magazines and the guy who fixed my record player, are they the same?" "I'm trying to reconcile them. Grandmaster study openings for years," she said, eyes on the gray street. "You hid yours." He chuckled sadly. "Fair. I'm mad, but I also replayed every game we played." She flipped her notebook toward him. "Diagrams, arrows, color-coded. You never took it easy on me after that first night. You respected my moves. That matters." She inhaled fog-scented air. "So, here's the deal. Rematch, public, tonight. If I win, you stay in Maple Falls and coach the after-school club I'm starting. If you win, you can disappear again. No guilt. Agreed?" His pulse quickened. "I accept." Word spread faster than gossip in a confessional. By 7 p.m., the Bean paradox overflowed. Someone rented folding chairs. Others perched on sack stools. A live stream phone sat on a tripod. Chess forums lit up once they recognized Max Voss in plaid. Journalists couldn't reach Maple Falls in time. Perfect. Nora placed her mango salsa attack pieces. Max chose black, a symbolic gesture. He would react, not dictate. Nora opened with her G-pawn once more. Cameras flashed. She attacked mercilessly, yet Max parried with economy, guiding chaos into channels. Mid-game arrived with equal material, but imbalanced tension. The audience held breath. Max sensed lines swirling like constellations. Old instincts thrummed. But alongside the competitive fire sat new humility. He wasn't here to crush, but to engage. On move 23, Nora unleashed a rook sacrifice reminiscent of their first encounter. This time, Max anticipated it. Declined. She smirked. "Coward." The crowd laughed. She redirected, weaving a net around his king, using bishop pair and the infamous G-pawn cramping his defenses. He calculated a safe route to perpetual check, guaranteed draw, and almost reached for the queen to begin, but paused. Nora's eyes gleamed. A draw would mean his victory by agreement's terms. He could vanish, but he pictured the after-school kids. Picture Nora's grandmother teaching rule-bending magic. He looked beyond the position, beyond the game, toward what might grow if he stayed. Then he saw a line, a daring counter-sacrifice that led to dynamic imbalance, uncertain for both sides, but alive. He inhaled, knocked his rook onto d4. The audience gasped. Nora's brow arched. She plunged into thought, lips moving. Minutes passed. Her clock shrank. Finally, she captured the rook. The ensuing complications dazzled. Pawns promoted, queens traded, kings marched into midfield like generals stripped to shirt sleeves. At move 40, they reached an endgame of king, knight, and 2 pawns each. Max realized both could queen simultaneously. Racing timers beeped. Sweat dotted Nora's forehead. She muttered Spanish endearments to her knight. Knights danced, pawns sprinted. On move 56, their last minor pieces forked each other. Mutual destruction. They captured. The board held 2 kings and A-file pawns separated by a single square. Simple arithmetic confirmed inevitability. Draw. Nora offered her hand. Looks like we both stay. Applause detonated. Someone popped a cork. Cold brew sprayed like champagne. Max shook her hand, but she pulled him into a hug. Cameras caught the moment. Not champion and challenger, but partners soaking in shared possibility. The following week, Max filed papers to extend his lease. He ordered bulk boards and clocks delivered to Maple Falls Elementary. Nora designed flyers. Chess without borders. Learn creativity over calculation. They co-taught. Max explored openings through stories. How Alakeen loved wandering nights. How Nimzowitsch preached blockade. Nora countered by inventing openings named after fruits. Pineapple pinwheel, papaya punch. Kids devoured both strategies and blueberry muffins. Evenings after closing, they'd brew coffee whose flavors matched positions. A dark Sumatran blend for a Caro Can. Bright Kenyan for King's Gambit. They played blitz with handicaps. He down a queen. She obligated to sing if behind on time. Laughter replaced the stadium hush that once defined his life. 3 months later, a letter arrived from the International Chess Federation inviting Max to the Grand Prix. He opened it under the pergola outside the café, handed it to Nora. "You could go back," she said, voice neutral. "I'd rather host a regional kids tournament right here." She studied him, a smile budding. "Then we'd better increase muffin production." In early spring, Maple Falls welcomed players from 5 counties. Gerald Higgins returned, chastened, and volunteered as scorekeeper. Reporters finally made the trek, expecting comeback scoop, and found a man setting up boards for children. One journalist asked Max if he feared wasting his prime. "I'm using it," he answered, gesturing at kids bent over boards like botanists examining new species. "Maybe not the way sponsors imagined, but exactly how I need to." After the interview, Nora slipped her hand into his. "Ready for game 1, coach? Always." They sat at their old window table, coffee steam mingling with lilac breeze. No stakes, no cameras this time. Just 2 people and 64 squares. Nora moved first, pawn to g4, the mango salsa forever. Max saluted with his knight, and the game blossomed, wild and free, like anonymity transformed into belonging. Outside, passers-by saw only a cozy cafe and 2 friends chuckling over a worn chessboard. Inside, the board held every possibility, the entire unborn future of a grandmaster who found peace, a barista who defied conventions, and a love that thrived in sacrificial moves neither ever regretted.